Okay, that's much more like it. uh, so I kind of came late to the Kingsman party. I didn't see it when it first came out, and I literally just saw it I think a little less than a month ago. Caught it on FX because, I thought, well, maybe I'll go see this one for a review, and like I think a lot of people, I was pleasantly surprised by it. I ended up buying it on Blu-ray, and I love it. I like the Kingsmen a lot. I think it's a fun, both loving tribute and very tongue-in-cheek parody of classic Bond-era spy films, which of course I'm a huge Bond fan, so I really liked it. I loved the action. I liked the the over-the-top nature of it, coupled with some really fine acting by really good actors, and it was great. So I went into this one with a lot of not so much expectations, but with a sense of this is going to be a lot of fun, and it was. I can't sit here and say that it's a great movie. I can't even sit here and say that it's better than the first, and I'm not sure why necessarily. I think the best I can come up with just right now is that I think maybe the newness of it is kind of worn off. Kind of like I felt the same way a little bit after Guardians of the Galaxy 2, is that even though upon rewatch, Guardians 2 is a lot better than I thought, but at the same time, that first initial thing, the newness factor isn't there anymore, so it doesn't quite have the same impact. But that being said, is it still a lot of fun? Hells yeah, it's a hell of a lot of fun, and it's a film that really takes some of the piss out of itself, and I think that's good. I think that's what the spy movie genre needs. One of my favorite lines from the first Kingsman is when Samuel L. Jackson and Colin Firth are having dinner, and he asks them, do you like spy movies? And he says, I like the old ones. The new ones are a little too serious for me. And I gotta agree. Now, I love Casino Royale, I love Skyfall, and Quantum of Solace wasn't a bad film. But, the Bond films and, the Bourne movies, they all have that thing now. They gotta take themselves way too seriously and forget about what made the spy genre so frickin' awesome, and the Bond movies especially. And this film and its predecessor, they remember what made the goofy gadgets, the outlandish hideouts, the big colors, the big colorful action spots. It's a lot of fun. I've also heard a lot of negative criticism for this one that says that they're comparing it very much to Men in Black 2, where they're basically saying it's just the same movie over again, and I don't agree with that. I don't agree with it. The criticisms I've heard say that the first one is, of course, Eggsy's journey from being kind of a street punk to becoming a man. Boy becomes a man story arc, and I don't believe this one follows that same pattern. I think this one kind of shows that just because you grow up and you take a job and you accept responsibility and all that, it doesn't mean growing up is over. Because there he kind of, in the first one, he was achieving his potential. Now he has a girlfriend, the princess from the end of the first one, which I think was cool, is that they didn't just make her kind of a throw off thing. Like, he actually kept dating her, and wants to marry her. So it's like, you never see that in a Bond movie, and I thought that was really cool. He also is trying to care for his, kind of his recently discovered mentor, who's suffering from, mental blocks, like a lot of people have to do with aging parents. I think it just showed that growing up continues. I don't feel it was retracing the same steps as the first one. I really don't. And I think it was doing fun new things. There's a great scene. And again, this is one of the things I love about these movies, is, again, you can tell they really love the Bond films, like I do, but they also know kind of when to, kind of where to make the right jokes. Like there's a scene in this film where Eggsy has to, do the spy thing and seduce a girl to achieve the mission. And like before he does it, he goes in and calls his girlfriend and going, baby, I have to seduce this girl for work. I gotta do it. And they have a fight about it. And then like halfway through, he can't do it because he's in a committed relationship. It's like, that is awesome. It's like how much would you love to see Bond like calling his girlfriend or his wife going, babe, I gotta do it. It's for the country. So yeah, some really cute scenes, and the action is phenomenal. Again, very fun, very imaginative. So if you've watched the trailers, you kind of get the plot. There's a new villain played by Juliana Moore, and she does a really fun job. She's very colorful, and I really like her. And as she's preparing her evil plot number 567, she takes out the Kingsmen, with the exception of Eggsy and Merlin, and they have to go and get help from the American version, the Statesmen, which are very cowboy-themed. Now, this is where the problems with the movie kind of come up. If you can call them real structural problems or whatnot, but I think that in a way there's my issues with it. So I love the idea of the Statesman. I love the idea of the American Secret Service guys being, again, cowboy-based, because that's kind of the genre that we are most associated with, even though we haven't put out really a lot of cowboy movies in decades, but that's the genre of film that we're identified with, so it makes sense that that's what they go with. And there's some really fun performances. The problem is that it almost felt like they were trying to mash a sequel and a spin-off into the same movie, and it just makes things really confusing. There is absolutely no reason for Channing Tatum to be in this movie. There's no reason for it. His character is like... His character is more expendable than the dudes on Star Trek in the red shirt. There's no reason for him to be there. Absolutely none. And I think the only reason to do it was to put his name on the poster, because his people like his blandness. And this is after me saying he did a great job in Logan Lucky, but I'm sorry. He's back to that very bland, who are you kind of thing in this one. And no reason for him to be there. Halle Berry is, it's Halle Berry. And I know that that's supposed to mean something like she's a great performer. I've never liked Halle Berry as an actor. I don't like Halle Berry as a person. And she's back to being that same stiff, wooden delivery in this for the few scenes she's in. And again, that wouldn't matter so much to me if they didn't try to sneak in this weird subplot about her always wanting to be an agent, and some sexist guy always votes against her, but then in the end she gets to become an agent. It's like, this plot came out of nowhere. I have no desire to see you become an agent because I have no idea who you are. You were just there to kind of be the American version of Merlin. This is not... Why are you getting a subplot? It's such a weak one that is resolved just so weird, So yeah, like there's this weird stuff where again, it seemed like they were trying to cram a whole other movie worth of backstory and characters into this sequel, and it didn't. Those parts didn't work. What did work, and I cannot remember the guy's name now. I really need to learn his name because I've seen him now in 2 films where I've liked him. Pablo, I can't remember his last name, but the guy who played the first Martell on Game of Thrones. He plays the American agent Whiskey, who is the guy in the trailer with the bullwhip and all that, and he's freaking awesome. He's a great character. His fight scenes are really inventive and really fun to watch. It's freaking awesome. So I liked him. Like, if they had just done the Kingsman, or I'm sorry, the Statesman, which is him and maybe Jeff Bridges, who does the cameo as their version of Arthur, then I would have been a lot happier with it. But again, it seems like they're trying to cram these other characters into it who really have no need to be in it. The other thing that really does make me mad. There's one thing about this that really does kind of make me unhappy. Is that if anybody saw the first one, so they supposedly kill off. We don't know. You never know with these movies. I mean, Colin Firth's character came back after being shot in the head, but they killed off Roxy, who became the new Lancelot in the first film. And I was really upset about that because I felt, even watching the first film, I was like, I kind of wish that she was the main character instead of Eggsy, because I feel like that character had a lot of potential, and they never really did anything with it. And I also liked that the little bit of interaction that Roxy and Eggsy have in this one. I really liked that they had a male-female relationship in an action movie that wasn't romantic, that they were friends, and they're like best friends. And I'm like, that's awesome. And I would have liked it if she, along with Merlin and Eggsy, had survived the big attack, and the three of them went to America, and then you could do more stuff with her. And they didn't, and I really feel like that's a squandered, wasted chance. And I can't even say she's a good character, but it's one of those characters that I've watched in the first movie and in the little bit she's in this one and go, there is a lot of potential for her. There's a lot of places you can go with that character and have some fun with and give a young actor something really fun to play, and they didn't. And I feel like I don't like that. I didn't feel right about that. And it kind of hangs over the movie for me, at least. Doesn't lessen my enjoyment of it, but does make you go, oh. The other cool thing from the first movie that does play over is Charlie, the guy who was the kind of the Draco Malfoy of the Kingsmen recruiting process. The rich prick who thought he was better than everybody. He's back as the henchman, and this was the villain's henchman, and I thought that was really cool. Like to bring him back instead of just introducing a new guy to go, oh no, look, it's this guy again. And yeah, so I thought that was really cool. A big, in both of these films now, a big, huge hand has to go to Colin Firth, who is proving, one, why British actors are the best actors on the planet. Because, man, he is putting every bit of talent and skill and subtlety and genuine emotion into these movies, which he doesn't have to. It's kind of stunt casting. He could do like Samuel L. Jackson did in the first one, or like Julianne Moore does in this one, and really just overact, because it's that kind of movie. But he doesn't do that. No, he is playing it completely straight. He is playing it like he is in a Bond movie, and he's playing it just as seriously and heartfelt as any of the Bond actors. And it's that performance along with the young guy who plays Eggsy, because I think Eggsy's, I can't remember his name either. I think he's one of those actors who's up and coming. I've liked him in almost everything I've seen him in, and I think he's gonna be like that in the future. I think he's still kind of young. He's not quite there yet, but I think it's his performance, Colin Firth's performance as Harry or Galahad or whatever you want to call him, that really gives these films the emotional weight that allows them to go off in those crazy directions. You can accept the craziness because you accept him at the heart of it as the emotional anchor, because he's so real. I mean, ask the folks when they were doing X-Men why it was so important to have Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen as Professor X and Magneto, because they gave the film that weight. That no matter how goofy this shit was going to get, these two could bring the genuine human emotion to it and make it feel like not, I'm going to say like a real film, but make it feel as important as any Shakespeare piece. And Hugh Jackman did that too, but we didn't know who Hugh Jackman was at the time. So there's not a whole lot to say about this one, because it's a spy movie sequel, not unlike a lot of the Bond sequels. It's the same thing. It's the same kind of formula as the first one, with some of the stakes raised and some of the characters getting killed off and some being expanded on. But in the end, it's the same beats. Everything that was good about the first movie is still there. So if you really liked Kingsman, go check this one out, because it's just a really freaking good movie. And again, not as good as the first one, not as new, but entertaining, adventurous, all the great soundtrack, the great characters, the big, literally comic book characters coming to life. So I had a blast with this one, and I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I decided to watch the first one. Especially after something like Brad's Status, which was such bullshit. It's nice to see a film that's a little bit more lighthearted and having a good time with life. So I dug it. And if you're a fan of old school Bond movies and you haven't seen the Kingsman films, I think you might enjoy it. Again, there's the level of violence is a little bit higher than the Bond films, or the sexual stuff's a little bit more, 2017. The language is much higher than any of the Bond films ever got. But I think if you like the core of what made the early Bond films work, then I think you're gonna like this. So if you haven't seen it, go see the first one first, then go see this one. And I think this is a popcorn film. That's everything a popcorn film should be. You go, you eat the popcorn, you have a good time doing it, and everybody leaves going, oh, that was a lot of fun. So yeah, trying to get into the parking lot here at Kroger, take your life in your hands. That's for people not talking to their camera. So anyway, good time, kind of redeemed the weekend at the movies a little bit. So, all right. So that's it for this weekend. Hope everybody had a good one. I'll be back next week with some new stuff. And until then, drive safe, and I'll see you at the movies.